LeBron James has been suspended for a game for the first time ever for his role in Sunday's scuffle with the Pistons. Did the NBA make the right call in doing so? Kerfuffle and scuffle. Baker Mayfield found time for the media Monday after skipping his post-game presser on Sunday. Did he seal his fate in Cleveland with his latest comments? And Kyle Kuzma said it's getting cold in D.C. Showed up in big style last night. Keyword there being big. And with that, we say good Tuesday morning to you. Welcome to First Things First. Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright, Kevin Wilds. That's a 10. Broussard, that's what you had that, but in blue, the first day of work here. And we were like, who would ever wear that? But it turns out it was Kyle Kuzma. Who knew?
Jenna, I'm heading to the mall after the show. Gotta pick me one up. I don't know if I can get pink, but I'm getting some color in that design. That's
pink
fresh.
And XXX large. Only Kyle Kuzma could pull that off. All right, we'll get to big sweaters and things in a little bit. But first, we got to get to this. Monday Night Football, Giants at Bucs. This one was actually close for the first half, at least, because in the second half, it was an episode of Survivor for Daniel Jones, the Giants quarterback, just on his heels through two awful picks, one of them snagged by a defensive tackle. Meanwhile, Tom Brady back to being Tom Brady after two rough games, threw for 307 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tampa rolls over Big Blue, 30-10 your final. For the Giants, they now fall to a disappointing 3-7 on the season after the game. An interesting stance by head coach Joe Judge. Take a listen.
I take this very personally, all right? I'm a man of my word. When I look in the camera and I tell people of New York, New Jersey, the fan base area, when I tell them we're going to give you something to be proud of, I'm not asking you to be patient. That's not your job. I'm telling you we're going to put something on the field you can be proud of. Okay, that's on my name. Okay, you understand that? That's on my name. All right? I'm the leader of this team. I'm in charge of this team. That's on me. I don't point fingers. I don't make excuses. All right? We're going to get this right. I'm not asking them to, be patient through it. I'm just telling you point blank, like I just told the players. I told the players, you just show up on Wednesday, ready to go.
Running out of time ever so slowly, Joe Judge. Nick, is it officially time, though, for the New York Giants to move on from Joe Judge and Daniel Jones?
Well, yes, obviously, of course, the answer is yes. They must move on from those guys. But since we're talking about the Giants, we can talk about another New Jersey-based famous organization, the Soprano crime family. And yeah, listen, at some point, Silvio Dante had to get got. And Bobby Bacala, who's Daniel Jones in this metaphor while he's shopping for his, wonderful train set, he's going to get got as well. And it's not really Bobby's fault. He didn't ask to be put in this position. He's just there, like Daniel Jones. I didn't ask you to draft me number 6. Nobody thought it was a good idea. But it's not over.
Myself included.
Until Tony's eating the onion rings and members only comes out of the bathroom and gets him. And in this metaphor, Dave Gettleman is Tony Soprano, and he's got to go. He is the reason for all of this. He is the person who defiantly got this whole ball rolling. And it's not just that. His first 3 drafts with the Giants were unmitigated disasters. It's that we have quotes from him after these drafts that are so now upon the light of day and really in the moment absurd that he has signed his own resignation letter whether he knows it or not. Now, I think we can show you his draft history, first and second rounders, since he's taken over the Giants. Saquon Barkley gets drafted. He says he was, quote, touched by the hand of God. I'd like to know which God, not Apollo, the God of good health and healing. We know that was Saquon. And he said, hey, how about this? I actually don't think running backs are, a declining asset. We're going to win right now. Then he drafts Will Hernandez, who you might be like, who's Will Hernandez? Oh, the guy who kept holding yesterday. The next year, drafts Daniel Jones. And these quotes are just unbelievable. The day after the draft, talking to Albert Breer, says, and I quote, I've been to 7 Super Bowls, kiddo. It's like, well, yeah, technically, but half of those you were a scout for the Bills. You didn't exactly architect that dynasty, my friend. Then you draft Dexter Lawrence, who's been fine. Then you trade 3 picks to go get DeAndre Baker, who played for you for 1 season and now is a backup on my team, the Kansas City Chiefs. Then next year, you shocked the world by drafting Andrew Thomas. We were all shocked because no one thought he should go number 4. And Xavier McKinney, who might end up being a good player, but he's been injured. This past year, I'll give him credit. They traded down. It actually looks like a smart move. Ajulari has been excellent for them, but doesn't matter. The fact that you did well in this draft is irrelevant at this point. Broussard, he picked Joe Judge. He picked Daniel Jones. Right now, it's the worst quarterback-coach combo in football. He's got to go.
Nick, I'm with you. I didn't know where you were going initially, but you got to the right spot, which is Gettleman. It's as simple as that. Joe Judge was a risk. Now, was he lazy and did he say, let me go to the Belichick coaching tree? All right, because that's where Judge comes from. But why would you go there? All right, Bill O'Brien had a little bit of success in Houston, but that wasn't great. It was kind of fleeting, obviously. Matt Patricia, a bust in Detroit. Charlie Weiss, Romeo Crennel. All right, Mike Vrabel, people think he's a Belichick coaching tree. He's not. He played for Bill, didn't come from his coaching tree, so to speak. So I think it was a lazy hire. Joe Judge only has special teams experience as a coach and a coordinator. All right, most of these other head coaches were offensive coordinators, so that was a mistake. You're right about Daniel Jones. Saquon Barkley, let me throw this out to GMs around the league. You can get a great running back later in the draft. You don't have to get him in the top 5 or even the first round. Alvin Kamara, 3rd round. Nick Chubb and Dalvin Cook, 2nd round. All right, what in the world was Gettleman doing? It's not 1981, okay? And then the offensive line. It's been a work in progress since Gettleman got there, and it's horrible. Daniel Jones is one of 4 quarterbacks to be sacked 100 times since he entered the league in 2019. All right, so that's gone awry. And then what in the world was Gettleman looking at when he saw Jason Garrett in Dallas that made him think, that's the guy. That's got to be my offensive coordinator. I mean, come on. The mistakes are just lined up one on top of the other. So I'm with you there, Nick. Now, here's what I do. I start at the front office, move on from Gettleman and his crew. The coach, typically, I would let whoever I hire as the new GM determine what he wants to do with Judge. I really do. Now, every GM tends to want their own guy, so maybe they're going to come in and get rid of Judge. But I would empower my GM right away to do what he wants with Judge, and keep him for a year and see what you got, or move on. It's your choice, but that's how I would handle it, Wilds, if I'm running the Giants.
So, Broussard, suppose you were the GM. Why wouldn't you back up the Brinks truck to Eric Bieniemy's house and say, Eric, we saw what you did with Kansas City. We think that you are we think that you're already a head coach. We think you're already one of the best coaches in the NFL, and you don't have a head coaching job. We want to give you this job immediately, and here's a blank check. Put the number in on what you want. Isn't that the first move? Like, look, I root for the Patriots. I kind of root for Joe Judge. I think I liked his character. These new quotes are starting to become a little bit is becoming a caricature. But why wouldn't you just go after Eric Bieniemy and say the rebuild starts right now?
He's on my list. Byron Leftwich is on my list. Kellen Moore's on my list. Like, I'd have a list. If I were the GM, I'd examine everything Joe Judge did. But those are all guys that would be on my list that I look at bringing in. Look, I think yesterday Judge, on the surface, it looks like he's taking the hit himself, right? But I also think he was kind of, making an appeal to Gettleman and the fans. Kind of the two people who might control his destiny. You always want the fans on your side. We'll get to that with Baker Mayfield later. But his post-game presser yesterday was very pro-fans, Nick, and it was pro-player. It was kind of telling Gettleman, the problem's not really with the roster you've put together. It's the coaching staff. And a lot of people think he was going squarely at Jason Garrett, the offensive coordinator who's calling the plays. And then he talked about the fans having the right to boo, and you don't have to be patient. I got to impress you, so to speak. So I think that some of that was at play as well, Nick.
Oh, that very well may be true, and I understand the point you're making, Broussard, of let the next GM decide who the coach is going to be. Unless the next GM is Jim Judge, Joe's brother, he ain't keeping him. So if you fire Gettleman, Joe Judge is out. There's no one in the world you're bringing in, maybe Wilds, if we got a time machine from a year ago when he loved Joe Judge before he came to his senses. They're a poorly coached team. They're a poorly constructed roster. We got Daniel Jones. Hey, is he in some competition with Carson Wentz of who can throw the single worst interception of the season? It's like, well, Wentz did a full 360 in the end zone and fired it into a D lineman's belly. He's like, how about I throw a perfect screen pass to a 340-pounder who's never caught a pass in his life? Let's try that one. It's the New York Giants. If you were watching the Manning cast yesterday, Peyton and Eli were beside themselves. This is an important organization. We can never rely on the Jets to be good. So we really only have one New York City team that has a chance to be relevant. They're in the NFC East, so they're on national television all the time. And you've got a guy who, when he drafted Daniel Jones, said, I'm in full-blown love with him. Check back with me in 3 years. Well, buddy, it's been 2 years and 8 months. And I don't know if that honeymoon period is over for you, but it is for the rest of the league. Joe Judge has been befooling himself from the beginning of the tenure. You got to rip the whole thing down to the studs, Jenna. It's not complicated.
Wow. Other than that, how is the play? In the midst of all that, Tom Brady had himself a game. We will get to the Bucs side of all that coming up, but we got to head to Chicago. Another head coach who might be in trouble, Matt Nagy. Might have the hottest seat in the NFL, second only to, Joe Judge. Would the Bears be better off moving on from their head coach? We'll discuss next. This is First Things First.
We might be firing a lot.
For drawing a blank, we start with the Chicago Bears. Not much going right these days for this team. They've lost 5 straight. This is for the second straight season they've lost 5 in a row. Looks like they'll be without Justin Fields for Thursday's game against Detroit, and the calls to fire head coach Matt Nagy are pouring in from fans, and not just at Bears games. Listen to what was happening at the Chicago Bulls game last night.
Wow.
You can make it out. Fire Nagy. Broussard, Chicago fans' rendition of Fire Nagy. I just keep it authentic. At last night's Bulls game, we're blank.
I don't feel good about this, Jenna, but I gotta say it. Truth hurts. Truth hurts. Look, in the NFL, there are no 5-year rebuilding plans. Okay, and Nagy's in his 4th year, and it is going backwards. 12-4 his first year. Great year. Look good. 8-8 the next 2 years, and now it's even worse than that. They got 3 wins out of 10 games. If you look at the NFL, very good coaches make a difference quickly. Quickly. Sean McDermott in Buffalo, they hadn't made the playoffs in 17 years. Gets them there his first season. Sean McVay hadn't made the playoffs with the Rams in 12 years. McVay gets them there in his first year, then they're in the Super Bowl right after that. All right, Andy Reid, they go 2-14 the year before he gets there. They're 11-5 the next year, and this is before Patrick Mahomes. This is with Alex Smith for several years, and they're a playoff mainstay before Mahomes. So the fact of the matter is, guys come in. I'm not saying it's got to happen the first year, but great coaches or very good coaches come in right away, Nick, and make a difference. And you want to put Justin Fields' future in the hands of a very good coach, and the record just shows that's not Matt Nagy right now.
So my answer is this is just the beginning, and this is a really rough spot because the Bears' history says they don't like firing coaches mid-season, but they obviously should have fired Nagy Sunday night. They didn't, maybe in part because they play Thursday on Thanksgiving. And this is where it gets complicated, Wilds. They're gonna beat the Lions because everyone beats the Lions unless you're quarterbacked by Mason Rudolph, in which case you tie the Lions. So then the right time to fire him would be Thursday. Can you fire him after a win? I think you can, but I also am, a little more flippant with firings than most people are. So now you beat the Lions. Now you got to keep him. So now another 10 days before you can fire him before you lose. I think it's the Cardinals after that and the Packers after that. Should have fired him on Sunday. They didn't. So now we're going to have at least another 2 weeks of this story when it could have been over with.
Okay, so I am not saying it's a guarantee that the Bears beat the Lions. The Lions have been knocking on the W door for a while, dating back to that Ravens game. They got the tie against the Steelers. And speaking of you can't be mad if you beat the Lions. Well, what's going on in Cleveland with Baker? Baker beat the Lions, and he's in the worst spot he has been in all year. So look, Jenna, I could see the Lions winning this one, getting fired up for Thanksgiving, winning, and then on Thanksgiving you get fired. It's just absolutely brutal, but I could see it happening.
Should have fired him Sunday. Could have.
Doesn't matter. I don't even think Goff is playing. That's true. Hey, you mentioned Baker Mayfield. Did the Browns quarterback seal his fate in Cleveland with his latest comments? You're right, they did come up with a win, but they also came out with some comments from Baker yesterday. Here's what he had to say on hearing boos from the home fans. Take a listen.
What did you make of some of the booing there in the second half from the fans?
Those are probably the same fans that won't be quiet while we're on offense and trying to operate, so don't really care.
Cleveland conundrum. Let's talk some Baker Mayfield now. The Browns quarterback had one of the worst games of his career on Sunday against the winless Lions. After the game, despite a win, mind you, Baker skips the post-game podium, does not talk to the media at all. Then yesterday circles back. He was in front of reporters answering questions. Let's hear what he had to say.
I was frustrated, among other things. I've never dodged any questions or hid away from that. So it's not about that. Just frustrated, removed emotions and all that from it. Just decided it was best to wait.
I think that's what surprised us all, Baker, is that you pride yourself on being that guy and being accountable and stepping forward. And
not one part of that's not being accountable. I'd be the first to tell you I played like so. It's not about accountable, and I don't owe you guys any of that. I owe that to my teammates, and I talk to them, so that's what matters.
What did you make of some of the booing there in the second half from the fans?
Those are probably the same fans that won't be quiet while we're on offense and trying to operate, so don't really care.
Is it a mixed message at all that you walk straight off without celebrating on the field after the game?
To our guys, no. To you guys, maybe. It depends on how you want to take it. You're going to write your stories regardless. My guys know that all I care about is winning, but I'm going to be frustrated if I do stuff to make it harder on us. And I did yesterday, and that's just flat out where it was. But I'm never going to take winning for granted. That's something that's very hard to do in this league. And it's hadn't been a very common thing around here for a long time. So I'm just frustrated with how I played, and that's how I've always been. They know I'm going to come back and attack this week, and that's how
So, Broussard, I'll start with you. A lot to take in here. What did you make of Baker's comments?
Well, Jenna, look, arrogance is usually off-putting. But arrogance is always off-putting when you're not playing well. And that was just pure arrogance. All right, first of all, he goes at the fans. That's the first thing. How do you go? You never win, Baker, by going at the fans. And if you didn't know it, they really do pay the bills. Because if they stop attending the games, if they stop buying the merchandise, you stop getting paid the millions that you're making. It does you no good to go at the fans, especially when you're not playing well. And there are reasons for the fans to like you. You got them to the playoffs for the first time in 18 years. First victory in nearly 3 decades. All right, you're playing through injuries. You're showing toughness. All of that. There are reasons for them to like you. Your Progressive commercials are great. But you go at them like this, and they will turn on you, especially when you're playing some of the worst football of your career and some of the worst quarterback in the league. That's number one. Number two, you go at the media. I don't owe you guys anything. Well, first of all, that also is a shot at the fans because the media is just the conduit between you and the fan. The fan wants to know, what were you thinking during the game? What did you see during the game? Give us some insight into what happened. You can even use the media to get your point of view out. But that is about the fans. It's not about reporters. They're just giving the fans what they want to keep them involved and excited about the game. So he went at the fans a few times with that. He obviously also went at the media. I say it all the time. Look, the media, and media is objective for the most part. But when you get them on your bad side, it doesn't help you at all. All right? The media vote for these awards a lot of times. So you don't need to go at the media. You don't need to go at the fans. You just need to, at points, he tried to accept responsibility. Take the responsibility. You didn't play well. Accept it. But you don't need to be shooting bullets at the fans especially, but also at the media.
So here's the problem. Because you mentioned two of the three groups that matter. You have the fans, you have the media, you have your teammates. I'm wondering if Baker has many allies left in any group. The media has been pretty harsh on him from the very beginning. Now, I primarily blame Colin Cowherd for that, but it's not just my buddy Cowherd that has been hammering Baker since he was at Oklahoma. He rubs some people the wrong way with the gesticulations on the sideline in college and the kind of devil-may-care attitude that people don't tend to love from their quarterback. So the media has always been somewhat split in regards to him. Then you have the fans. And the fans in Cleveland had been very protective of Baker. Well, that is starting to wear away and turn the other way, pardon me. And he's just wrong when he says the only people he was essentially saying the only people booing were the dumb fans. The fans that don't even understand be quiet when we're on offense. Right. That's just an unforced error, just like skipping the press conference was an unforced error. If he comes out at the press conference and says what he said there, this isn't really a story. If he says, I want to make this clear. I'm happy we won. I'm furious with myself. I put my teammates in a bad position. They had to fight harder than they should have because I played poorly. And then there's the teammates part of it, which is Baker has always projected, we inside this locker room are United 53. The outside noise doesn't matter. Well, it would have been nicer if a few more of that United 53 would have publicly and vocally taken his side when Odell was flaming him on his way out, or Odell's, camp was flaming him, instead of seemingly, siding with Odell or, voting in absentia. I'm going to stay out of this on that. And now, Wilds, you have a spot, and this is what I find very interesting. They have back-to-back games against the Ravens. They go Ravens by Ravens. That's the Browns' next three. Lamar and Baker were drafted in the same draft class. One guy went number 1, one guy went number 32. Lamar and Baker both are awaiting contract extensions. Lamar just missed an NFL game with a cold, sick of some sort. Nobody criticized him. His team came this close to losing to the Bears because they didn't have him. The previous week, Lamar was playing and they lost to the Dolphins. Lamar's built up, though, enough equity with most of the media, certainly with the fans, and definitely with his teammates through his play and the way he kind of engenders loyalty. No one criticizes him. Baker, on the other hand, is playing through a litany of injuries, and it's working against him. One guy is going to get the massive contract extension this offseason. One guy is not. So I think Baker is, all of a sudden, when you look at Baker Mayfield allies, it's his wife, Bernie Kosar, and the ladies from the Progressive commercials, and that's about it. It's not a great place to be, Wilds.
Add me to the list. I am now Team Baker with one tiny switch. I think this is all a marketing problem. I think whoever is handling Baker's business needs to go. You're out of here. You know why? The Browns are 6-5. The Browns have the same record as the Colts. The Browns have one more loss than the Buffalo Bills. Why aren't those teams falling apart at the seams? Same record. Exact same record. Baker is making an issue with the media after a win. After a gutsy win that the Lions, I know the Lions have not won a game. And I personally thought he should have sat down, Nick. But you won. You get up there, just like you said. He said, you know what? I didn't play my best, but that's why we're a team. And that's why we're 6-5. And the fans were a little bit on me, but hey, I work for you guys. I'm going to do better. But with the only thing that matters in Cleveland and in my heart is winning. And that's why we're 6-5. My goodness. You and I, Nick, our favorite teams, the Chiefs and the Patriots, are 7-4. And we're out here. I'm out like the dynasty is back. And you're like, we're going to win the Super Bowl. We got one more win than Baker. Yeah. That's it. So I don't understand why people are going crazy for poor Baker. It makes no sense.
Because here, I think I can explain it. And Broussard, tell me if you agree. I think it's his play on the field has obviously been beneath the standard he set last year. Like, he has not played well. The other reason is we do look at the schedule and we say the Browns the rest of the way, they have the Ravens twice, they have the Steelers, they have the Packers, they have the Bengals. That's 5 of their final 6. And I think people look at it and say, yeah, they're 6-5. Do we think they're going to make the playoffs? Not with that schedule. Do we think they're going to go 2-0? Like the 2 games against Baltimore are going to be the turning point for one of those 2 teams' season. Broussard, you and I had the Browns in the AFC Championship game this year, and even though they're still alive, given how they've played on both sides of the ball, to be fair to Baker, I don't think either one of us right now thinks they're likely to even make the playoffs. That's why I think it's hard to hang your hat on we're 6-5, because I think even inside the building, they know that record might turn on them pretty quick.
Well,
absolutely. You can't be pumping your chest out because you're 6-5. Indianapolis is 6-5 is a lot different. All right. Even Kansas City 7-4 is a lot. For all the flack they caught early in the year, now with the win streak, that's different too. No, I'm serious.
It's one more. It's one more.
The Browns aren't
they went to the
well.
Super Bowl, so that
the Browns
the
just
team
got
that went to the Super Bowl is now
by your
7-4.
Patriots.
Well, that's because Patriots
45-7.
Oh, Wilds. but just real quick to respond to Wilds. In a 17-game season, the margins are usually, we're halfway through a 17-game season. So one win is actually a big difference. That's first of all. Second of all, we do tend to be a little yo-yo-ish in what have you done the last month. You mentioned the Chiefs and the Patriots. They are on the 2 longest winning streaks in the league right now. So their 7-4 feels way different than a Browns 6-5 who just got waxed by the Patriots and eked out a win against the Lions, right? Like, it feels different, even if the records aren't that different.
But Stefanski has lost control of this ship when there is a tumult within the locker room after a win. The Steelers tied the Lions, and it wasn't like, what's happening? Maybe it was a Mason Rudolph thing, but still, you got to win, move forward. It shouldn't be this big drama after a win.
Also, Baker's an edgy player, and when you're an edgy player and you fall short of expectations that coming into the season we thought were sky high, you're going to get criticism. You're going to get the Colin Cowards who are going to be loud and proud, and they're going to get people on their side. Baker needs to understand that. He wants to play on the edge. He's going to get criticized when he doesn't come up and prove himself. All right, we're going to have more on this coming up. We got to talk some basketball right now because the NBA, we waited for it yesterday, issued suspensions yesterday for the Lakers-Pistons scuffle, muffle. Did they get it right suspending LeBron for the first time ever? I nailed exactly what it was called. We'll talk about it next. First things first. Back talking the fallout from the Lakers-Pistons scuffle Sunday night. The NBA handed out suspensions yesterday for those involved, and one of them went to LeBron James, his first ever. He got a 1-game ban for, quote, recklessly hitting Isaiah Stewart in the face. Meanwhile, Stewart was given 2 games for, quote, escalating an on-court altercation. We got NBA champ Antoine Walker with us this morning to help break this all down. Twan, good morning. I'll start with you. Did the NBA get this right?
The NBA did actually get this right. I thought the 2 games to start wait carry on to get to LeBron was uncalled for. So, and then it happened in Detroit, and we all know the history with Detroit and the things that happened in that city. So I like the fact that they did that, and to make that stand with him being a young player. LeBron's was 1 and 2. I think the 1 game suspension. But my problem with the whole situation, I felt like LeBron did not handle this situation correctly, and I mean after the game. I felt like when he did not address it, he
All right, we're having some issues with Antoine.
Yeah, we're having some
Broussard,
technical
why don't you jump in?
difficulties.
What was your reaction to what was doled out yesterday as far as suspensions go?
Well, of course, yesterday I said that I didn't think LeBron should get suspended because I didn't think it was intentional. All right, I don't think he tried to hurt Isaiah Stewart on purpose. He obviously went afterwards to try to, hey, man, you all right? I'm sorry about that. He didn't mean to do it. And after the game, there's reports that after the game, he tried to reach out to Isaiah Stewart and call him and get his phone number to try to tell him he didn't mean it, to reiterate that. However, the league is not in the business of judging intentions. The league goes with what actually happened. So I'm not upset about a 1-game suspension, even though I didn't think he deserved one. I'm fine with that. As far as Isaiah Stewart, I said yesterday he should get 2 games or more. I just think there should have been a wider gap between LeBron's punishment and Isaiah Stewart's. All right, so I would say either 2, like I said yesterday, 2 games for Stewart, 0 for LeBron, or 1 game for LeBron, 3 for Stewart. And people might think I'm crazy because obviously LeBron started it and Isaiah Stewart didn't hit anybody or anything. However, I can't say this strong enough. The league has got to send a message that cannot happen. Look, accidents happen. Mistakes happen. Even if it was on purpose, you can't respond the way Isaiah Stewart did, because what if he had gotten to LeBron? And you heard Anthony Davis in the postgame. Oh, we're going to defend our brother. We're not going to let that happen. It would have been an all-out brawl. And the fans are really close to the court. I don't even want to think about what could have happened had he gotten to LeBron and all the players are fighting. It could have been chaos. So this is not something to just be brushed over. I'm glad he's not like 10 games or anything like that. But you got to send a strong enough message to let him know, look, buddy, this cannot ever happen. You can be upset, all that, but you can't almost start a team-on-team brawl like this.
So I agree with a lot of that. I also got something wrong yesterday. I said Jokic got 2 games for shoving Markieff Morris, who, by the way, is still out, not coming back anytime soon due to the injury he suffered from Jokic's shove. For some reason in my head, Jokic got 2. Jokic only got 1. And that makes me feel like LeBron deserves 0. I think if the NBA is saying the standard for a 1-game suspension is what Jokic did, this clearly falls beneath that. When I was talking about it yesterday, I thought Jokic had gotten 2, so I thought LeBron deserved 1. But I don't look at what LeBron did anything close to what Jokic did. But I do have a good idea here, Wilds, that I want to run by you. But first, because whenever we talk about LeBron, some people think of Jordan. Should be noted, LeBron has now tied Jordan in another category. Career suspensions, 1 apiece. Now LeBron's is for 1 game for an unintentional elbow. Jordan's was for about 145 games for gambling on. Oh, okay. What's that? I'm sorry. Jordan just mysteriously quit the sport to go play baseball in the middle of his prime, and then came back equally mysteriously. Jones. Oh yeah, that happens all the time. It makes a ton of sense. So my bad. So Jordan 0 career suspensions. LeBron 1. But here's my idea, Wilds. And tell me why this can't happen. The NBA should have the discretion that if a player gets suspended, not 10, 20 games for a one-off or a 1 or 2 game stint, to make that player serve his suspension at the next home game. It sucks for Knicks fans they don't get to see LeBron this year. And by the way, he plays in the West now. Not a lot of trips to MSG left in his career. The NBA, if you're going to suspend LeBron James, should say home Friday night against the Kings is when he's serving it. And Isaiah Stewart, guess what? You can serve yours immediately. Are those 2 different rules for different guys? Sure. But for the health of the league, for the betterment of the league, Wilds, couldn't the NBA start to say, we are going to, if it's nationally televised or if it's a road game where people, it's not because it's New York. For Indiana, I'd feel the same way. People who have bought tickets for months to see LeBron, you already have to deal with dancing through the raindrops of load management. I feel like suspension should have to be served at home if the NBA could do that, and they obviously could. So that's the little tweak I would have here, make LeBron serve a suspension their next game at Staples. But aside from that, I don't have a huge deal with it. I feel like what Jokic did was way worse, and they got the same punishment.
So I think that's a great idea. The only thing that I think would be a little bit funny about it would be, would there be a competitive, I don't know, advantage to serving it at home? Like, what if they were playing the Bucs? Right. I guess that would be for the health of the league. If you had the Bucs on the road, and then when you were going home, you were playing the Thunder, which the Lakers have a hard time playing, don't get me wrong. But, like, would the Bucs say, we want them, we want it to be served? I think it's a great idea.
The answer, Wild.
I think I think it's a solid idea. Go ahead, Broussard.
I like it too, especially when I first heard you say it, Nick. It sounds great. But Wilds, even if it's not Bucs on the road, Thunder at home, you still get an advantage if your player sits out at home, because teams typically play better at home. All right, and also, what if you're on a 5-game road trip? So now you're going to serve the suspension in 2 weeks or in a week. I mean, there are just a few problems with it. So I like what you're saying, Nick, but if I think it out, I'm not so sure about it.
I guess here's my general point. Sometimes I think because of what we do, we forget that sports are just Broadway with athletes instead of actors. It's a form of entertainment. And if you were a traveling Broadway show and someone for some reason had to miss a performance, it's like, well, on Wednesday we're in New York City, but on Friday we're back in our home base in Charlotte where we do all our performances. Be like, sit out the Charlotte one. Those people always have the opportunity to see you. This is a business. And this isn't me about trying to be deferential to LeBron. I would have said the same thing for Jokic if anyone ever in their life was like, I'm buying a ticket to go see Nikola Jokic. That doesn't actually happen, but still, maybe they do. They just love the passing. But I just think, Jenna, there's no reason that the league can't. They can make their own rules. And they can say, we have the discretion on when you're going to serve your suspension based on location of the game and national broadcast of the game. TV ratings matter to the league. And Lakers-Kings at Staples is going to get one number, and Lakers-Knicks at MSG on TNT is going to get another. So I think LeBron should be serving his suspension Friday. We'll see if they make the change in the next 8 hours. My guess is they won't. Well, they could. Broussard.
Yeah, because right now it's Lakers-Knicks at the Garden with no LeBron James. Understudy. Back talking Big Blue. Another rough 2-turnover performance for Danny Dimes last night. Do the Giants have a big Daniel Jones problem on their hands? We discuss that next. First things first.
Vincent Goodwill reminds me, MJ.
Thanksgiving Day, the tradition on Fox continues as we come together for food, family, and football. Bears taking on the Lions. Coverage begins with a special edition of the Fox NFL pregame show at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, only on Fox and the Fox Sports app. All right, back here talking the fallout from the Lakers-Pistons scuffle from Sunday night to the NBA handing out suspensions yesterday for those involved. One of them went to LeBron James, his first ever. He got a 1-game ban for, quote, recklessly hitting Isaiah Stewart in the face. Meanwhile, Stewart was given 2 games for, quote, escalating an on-court altercation. So, Nick, let's take a step back. Let's talk big picture here. What does all this tell you about the perception of LeBron James and the Lakers around the league?
Yeah, I think right now the league as a whole sees blood in the water. And LeBron, whether people like it or not, LeBron has dominated this league for the last dozen years. And he has been the defining player and the defining story. And for every healthy year he's had over the last decade, his team has played in the final game of the season. They haven't always won them, but they've always been one of the 2 last teams standing. Right now, with LeBron coming off the injury, another injury, with the Lakers not gelling really at all, with Russ being Russ for good and for bad, and Anthony Davis still kind of a lot of nights floating like he did last year, and we haven't had many vintage LeBron performances, hell, vintage LeBron moments since he hit that shot over Steph Curry in the play-in game. I think there's a lot of guys who have wanted some get back on LeBron and think this is the year they're going to get it. And Wilds, this qualifies for the media as well. There are a lot of folks that cover the league that you can just, they drip the way I drip with objectivity, they drip with disdain about Clutch and Rich and LeBron and the way the Lakers were constructed and all of it. And they want nothing more than a good schadenfreude season for the Lakers. Now, the flip side to that is, if this year's Lakers, this team, year 19 LeBron about turned 37, if this team once again is the last team standing, then it ends all debates for all time. But I do think guys are like, oh, a little older, a little more injury prone, a little poorly constructed roster LeBron, let me go get some of that. I do think that's happening.
I totally agree with you, because here's the thing. LeBron's been in the league for 2 decades. And stars have always felt they have a right to go after LeBron. They're stars. They're peers.
Right.
So whether it's Paul Pierce, whether it's Draymond Green, even Giannis putting the crown on his head, that always happens. That's fine because it's stars. Steph in the finals, that's stars going after him. But recently, and I'm going to say this started, in his career, there's only been a handful of non-stars to go after him. It's over 20 years. I came up with really 3 guys, and you remember them because they're iconic moments. Lance Stevenson blew in his ear. Oh, my God, he blew in LeBron's ear. That was a major story. Deshaun Stevenson, remember Deshaun Stevenson, Soulja Boy? That was a big deal because they kind of got into it. And then Joakim Noah had just a quote. Joakim Noah said they're Hollywood as hell, and then barked at him from the bench a few years later. That's it. Through the last probably, 8 months, we've seen that number of incidents already there. And I'll show you a play. It happened in the play-in game. It was Jordan Poole. You'll remember this. This is a missed dunk. But you watch Jordan Poole. Remember LeBron's got his hamstring issue? Jordan Poole, when you see this replay, takes a look. Oh, is there a LeBron? I'm going to dunk on LeBron. And after the game, Steph says, I like that. It didn't work out. Hey, Jordan Poole's playing with confidence this year, right? But I think everybody, Broussard, can come and make their names on LeBron's dime right now. So whether it's Elijah Stewart, whether we saw a campaign barking at LeBron, they were going back and forth.
I forgot
whether
about
it's
campaign.
Cantor trying to lay down a political statement, but still at LeBron's expense. There's a lot of ways you can make that statement, and he's targeting LeBron specifically because the wind blows strong at the top of the mountain. So between Jordan Poole, Elijah Stewart, campaign, Enes Kanter, I think all those guys are trying to make a point about LeBron specifically.
Well, Wilds, I think you made a great point, but I think that it kind of goes against your main premise that it used to be stars going at him, and now it's role players and every type of player.
Yeah.
But I think the examples you gave, Joakim Noah, Lance Stevenson, Deshaun Stevenson, like that proves, well, throughout LeBron's career, regular role players have felt comfortable challenging and going at LeBron. And the fact is, look, players throughout the league undoubtedly respect LeBron James. First, for his greatness on the court, and also for all the things he's done off the court. His outspokenness, the fact that he's a media mogul and helped empower his childhood friends to become moguls in their own right in various fields. Guys emulate LeBron from the way he dresses, and especially used to dress, and to everything else he's doing. So there's respect there. But I don't know that there's been fear. Now, you might want to talk about Toronto and some of those teams in the Eastern Conference years ago, but I was talking to a player, this was about a year ago, a former player who played against LeBron, though. He played several years against LeBron. And he said the difference in going against LeBron, he was a perimeter guy, going against LeBron and going against Kobe was the difference in fighting Floyd Mayweather or Mike Tyson. He's like, you know they're both great, and you're going to lose because they're both so great. But if you fight Floyd Mayweather, he's going to beat you, but it's not really going to hurt. You know, he's not going to hurt you. He's not going to put you through a lot of pain. If you fight Tyson, he's going to hurt you. It's going to be painful. And this player at least, who was an all-star, was telling me that was LeBron. LeBron was like Floyd Mayweather. You're going to lose. He's going to beat you, but it's not going to be that painful. Whereas Tyson was like Kobe Bryant. You're going to lose to Kobe, and it's going to be painful because he's going to go for your jugular. And I don't think LeBron's ever had that in the league where guys feared that he was just coming for their jugular because they feel like he's not that type of guy, Nick.
So that I've always thought that I agree with you. There's been that sense about it by certain guys. It's always struck me as totally absurd. I think the resume speaks for itself. But more to the point of this specific moment in time, this is why most of the all-time greatest don't put themselves in this position. Because Kareem played this long. But by the time Kareem was even close to year 19, that was Magic's team. Whether they won or lost, it was going to be a referendum on Magic. The moment Jordan, we can talk about the reasons, but the facts are this. There was twice in Jordan's runs that he faced real adversity on the way to the title. And he quit the sport both times immediately after. The Knicks were up 2-0 on him in '93. Pippen bailed him out in game 3. Game 4, he had the iconic 54 points. They win the title. He quits the sport. '98, the Pacers have him in a Game 7. First Game 7 he's played in a half decade. The year after, he quits the sport. You never had a chance to go at Michael when he was truly vulnerable, unless you count the half season when he came back when he wasn't healthy. So LeBron's in uncharted waters, Wilds, where he is still looked at as one of the very best players in the sport, was en route to winning MVP last year. But at the same time, people think he can get got right now and it will be a referendum on him. So it's very interesting to see how this plays out the rest of the season when LeBron comes back from the suspension after tonight.
So the other interesting thing when we talk about the two current GOATs in their sports, or LeBron GOAT runner-up, how many times have we heard defensive players say, "Oh, I'd love to sack Tom Brady. Oh, I would love to get Tom Brady." And guess what? The Bucs are like, well, you're not going to get the chance. And Tom Brady stays clean. That isn't the case with the Lakers. You're allowed to attack LeBron on offense, attack him on defense, literally start pushing him, chasing him. So I think it's very hard to be at that mountaintop and have guys go at you, Jenna.
I think that's right.
The Lakers are at the Garden tonight to take on the Knicks. No LeBron James in this one. Undisputed coming up next. These guys keep the conversation going. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone.